Hi, I'm Walt. This is Delta Astrophotography. In my last video, I photographed the entire constellation of Orion with a nifty 50. Now I'm going to show you how I processed it. I'm going to leave a link to my stacked unprocessed TIFF file in the description below, so if you want to download that and follow along with me, that'd be awesome. The software I'm going to be using is Lightroom and Photoshop. You can get them both together for $10, or it's $10 a month, but if you just want to try it out, $10. I'm also going to be using a Photoshop plugin called Gradient Exterminator. Sadly, it's the most expensive thing on the list. It's $50, but if you're taking astrophotography seriously, you should definitely get it. It's going to fix so many of your images. I use it twice in this tutorial. It's amazing. Next, I'll be using a piece of software called StarNet++, and this one's a game changer because it removes all of the stars from your image, and you get to process your nebulosity and your stars-only image completely separately and then recombine them at the end. Now, it's available for free for Windows and Mac, but the Mac version operates a little different, and I don't quite know how to use it, so you'll probably have to look up a tutorial for that if you use a Mac. And finally, I stack my photos with a piece of software called Sequator or Sequator. If you're just using the TIFF I supplied down in the description, then you don't have to worry about that. Everything's already stacked for you. All right, let's go ahead and get everything downloaded and installed, and let's get to processing. All right, I've got everything loaded up in Lightroom. Let's take a look. We shot at ISO 800, 50 millimeters, f3.5, 120 seconds, and I do want to add that I did shoot from a dark location. I live in a pretty dark area out in the country. Okay, so let's take a look at the corners. I just want to show you this. They look pretty terrible. Probably should have stopped down to f4 or lower. Oh well, can't fix that now. And another problem I had was, well, I can see a little bit of red glow in the corner, and it really gets exaggerated when I start doing curve stretches, even with added dark frames in the stack. So I don't know what's going on there. And towards the end of the image session that night, I don't know what happened. The moon was not out that night, so I have no idea what caused it to suddenly start getting brighter, especially from the right. And the white balance is all thrown off. It just looks terrible, and I think maybe these last 10 images or so are not even usable. But I'm going to try to correct it as much as possible by balancing the white balance. So let's do that now. Let's get started. I'm going to click my first image here, and I'm going to come down to Vibrance and Saturation over here on the right, and turn them all the way up. Let's try to get this even all the way throughout the image. Right now it's very red. It's too warm for me. I'm going to just kind of drag this over into the blue a little bit. There we go. It's getting better. I don't want it too blue, but all right. It's still very red down here in the bottom right corner, so I'm going to fix that using a graduated filter. So I'm going to click this right here, graduated filter. Just going to drag this over like that. Make sure everything is zeroed out over here. You don't want anything to be affected except temperature. I'm going to turn that towards the blue. And there we go. Drag that in a little bit more towards the middle. Looks good to me. This is as balanced as I'm going to probably want to get it right now. Click done. Now we're going to double click Vibrance and Saturation to get them back to normal. And we can try to correct a little vignetting if you'd like, if you have some serious vignetting in your photos. If you didn't take any flats, normally I'd take flats, but I thought I'd try to make this video simple. Alright, we're going to make sure that no sharpening or noise reduction are on. Go down to our vignetting right here and just give it a little bump. And you can see it's brightening up in that corner right there. It's also kind of bringing out that glow though. We're going to end up cropping that out anyway later. Okay, now let's make sure our first photo is selected. Hold Shift and click our last photo. This includes the darks. And click Sync. I'm going to synchronize this to all of the photos so they'll all have the same white balance correction. And as you can see, these photos down on the end are no longer terribly orange, but they still seem a bit bright on the right side, and so I think I'm just going to ignore these last few photos. So let's export them. Click the first one, and we'll go down here. I had 65 photos, but I think I'm only going to select about 55. So there we go. File, export. I've got my folder chosen for YouTube, and we're going to make sure that they are saved as TIFF compression none. And you can go to custom settings, edit, and give them a name. Orion for YouTube. There we go. And I'm just going to click export. Alright, now that those are exported, we're just going to select all of our dark frames. I only took 10, sadly. I should have probably taken at least 20. Anyway, select our dark frames. Go to File, Export. Now I'm just going to click Put in Subfolder and call it Darks, and click Export. Now that everything is exported, we're going to jump over into Sequator, or is it called Sequator? I'm not really sure. You guys let me know in the comments. So, let's start by adding our light frames by clicking Star Images. And here they are. Just going to click the first one, hold Shift, click the last one, and click Open. Now we're going to add our dark frames by clicking Noise Images. Go into my Darks folder, select all those, and add them in. Now we're just going to tell it where to save the final file by clicking Output. And I've created a folder in here called Final. Alright, there we go. I'm just going to title this Orion for YouTube. There we go. Now we're going to work down here in the left hand side. I probably need to move my head so you can see what's going on over here. There we go. Okay, so we're going to click on Accumulation right here and click Select Best Pixels. As you can see, this removes aircraft and things like satellites. And I definitely have a lot of those in my photos. Alright, and we're going to move this over to Strict. And that's really all there is to it. So I'm going to click Start and let it roll. Alright, and it's done. It took about 3 minutes and 32 seconds. Let's open this up in Photoshop. And here we go. Let's zoom in a little bit. See that there's very little to no noise in here. I just love stacking. Okay, here we go. We're going to start by creating a duplicate layer by hitting Control or Command J. Now we're going to do a levels adjustment by hitting Control or Command L. I'm just going to bring this in a little bit. Not too much. My skies were already pretty dark, and I don't want a solid black sky, really. I think that looks good to me. Alright, let's do our first curve stretch. I'm going to hit Control M, Command M on a Mac. I'm just going to start right here and pull up. Bring the highlights down a bit. Don't want to be blowing out any stars. Alright, looks good to me. Hit OK. Now we're going to create a new stamp layer. This pretty much takes everything that we've done and creates and puts it all in a new layer and puts it on top. So I'm going to do that by hitting Control Alt Shift and E all together. On a Mac, that's probably Command Option Shift and E. Alright, let's things are getting a little bright again, so let's do a levels adjustment. Control L. Bring things in a bit. It's getting a little red, so we can always go where it says channel RGB, look at our individual channels and adjust those individually as well. Bring that in. It's definitely looking a bit blue. Bring the blue in. Maybe a touch of green. Bring that in. A lot of people use numbers to do this accurately. I just try to eyeball it. Okay, I'm happy with this. That last levels adjustment was pretty serious. Look at the difference. So we're going to create a new stamp layer again. Control Alt Shift and E. Doing that because the next thing we're going to do is create a star mask. For my next curves adjustment, I don't want to bring out any more of these stars. I don't want to make them bigger. I don't want to bring out any more of the smaller hidden stars. And this star mask method is a game changer. It just really allows you to edit your photos without blowing out your stars too much. So here we go. First thing I'm going to do is copy this image. So we're going to hit Control A and Control C. It's probably Command A and Command C on a Mac. Now we're going to come down here and click Add Layer Mask. Now we're going to hold Alt, or probably Option on a Mac, and click the layer mask. It brings it up solid white, and we're going to paste our image into the layer mask by hitting Control V. Now we have a black and white image pasted in the layer mask, and I want to invert it because I want the stars to be black and the background to be white. If the stars are black, that means every time I do an edit, anything that's black will not be affected. So let's invert it by going Control or Command I. And there we see we have a white background with black stars. Now I'm going to exaggerate those black stars now by pulling up levels, Control L. I'm just going to bring the shadows in. Levels is so jerky when I try to do this within a layer mask like this. I don't know why. Alright, you can see I'm really exaggerating the blackness of the stars now, but my white background is turning gray, so let's bring the white in to the left a little bit. Okay, that's looking good. Click OK. Now there's some nebulosity in here that's kind of turning black too, and I don't want that to be black. I want the nebulosity to be brought out. So I'm going to click my dodge tool. It looks like a lollipop. It could potentially be set to burn. So just right click it if you need to and switch it to dodge. And change my brush, my exposure to yeah, about 50% will be okay. And your brush size can be adjusted with the bracket keys on your keyboard. I'm just going to kind of click, tap, tap, tap on like the Orion Nebula, maybe some of the areas around the stars. I kind of want to bring out some of that star color. Okay, and the last thing we're going to do is go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur. I'm going to blur this by somewhere between 2 and 3 pixels. That way there won't be any hard, unnatural looking edges. Okay, now let's click back on the actual photo on our top layer. And you see these little marching ants that are around the edge of the photo. It means it's still selected. Let's deselect that by hitting Control D. Okay, let's get back to work. I'm going to bring up curves again by hitting Control M. Let's do another curves stretch, and this time it should kind of leave the stars alone. Yeah, there we go. Definitely bringing out that loop, and I can definitely start to see the Witch Head Nebula right here. Looks good to me. A lot of people do an S-curve. I usually just bring the darks down by using levels, but that's really up to you. However you like to process. Alright, let's click OK. It's starting to get a little messy, a little out of hand, but that's okay. We're going to hit Control, Alt, Shift, and E to do a new stamp layer. I'm going to adjust my levels again. Control L. See if I can bring that in some more. Look at the individual color channels. Definitely bring in red a little more. Green. You don't want to bring it all the way up past the data. See over here we're getting dangerously close to the edge, and when you get close to the edge you're clipping data, and that's probably the super black dark area right there, which I'm not too concerned about, I guess, but you just got to be careful. If you bring anything too far past this edge, you're clipping data. And if you can't see your histogram at all, just go to Window and click Histogram, and just watch that histogram and make sure you're not clipping any data. Bring blue in a little bit. There we go. It looks good. Green is definitely on the verge of being clipped over here. See that? That's just too much. All right, now this needs to be handled, and you know, we can see this red glow is a problem. So let's take care of this with Gradient Exterminator. I love Gradient Exterminator. I'm going to start by clicking the lasso tool, and I'm going to draw a circle around my main subject here. Doesn't have to be a perfect circle or anything. Now I'm going to go to Select, Inverse. Now go to Filter, RC Astro, Gradient Exterminator. I'm going to leave it at Medium, Medium, Balance Background Color, and click OK. Check this out. And that is so much better in my opinion. Let's deselect that. And now we can do another levels adjustment. Control L. Just gonna bring the reds in a little bit. Bring the greens in a touch. And the blues in a touch. I had to bring the reds in just a touch more. Okay, now at this point, I'm going to do something completely different. We're going to use StarNet++ to remove all the stars from the photo so I can edit the nebulosity separate, and we're going to create a stars only layer so I can edit the stars separately as well. So let me show you how to do this, at least on a PC. If you're using a Mac, you'll probably have to look up a tutorial on how to use StarNet++ because it is different on a Mac. But it's very easy to use on a PC. So what we're going to do is go to File, Save As, and we're going to save a copy of this file in your StarNet folder. I have mine on my desktop. It's going to call it Orion for YouTube. Save it in the StarNet folder. Just going to call it Orion for YouTube. Uncheck layers. You definitely don't want to do that. It'll just create a gigantic file and you don't need all that. And click Save. Now I'm going to open up my StarNet folder. So go to Desktop, StarNet, and there we have it, Orion for YouTube. I'm going to click that and drag it into RGB StarNet++. You'll see this come up, and it'll do its thing. Unfortunately, this process can take up to 45 minutes. So this is the time where you go to work, make dinner, do whatever it is you do. I'm going to go take a shower, and I will see you when this is over.
1 hour later.
All right, I had a shower and some breakfast, feeling good. Let's get on with it. So when StarNet++ is done, in the StarNet folder, you should see a file now called Starless, a TIFF file called Starless. So we'll just open that in Photoshop. I'm just going to drag it down into Photoshop like this. And there we have it. It's kind of funky looking, not as clean as I would have liked, but that's how it is. So now what we need to do is make a stars only photo. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to the image we were working with before, and I'm probably just going to go ahead and flatten this image just to save my computer resources. It's kind of a destructive way to do things because it makes it harder to go back and fix anything. But that's what I'm going to do for now. So I'm going to go to Layer, Flatten Image. All right. Now, to make this a stars only image, we're going to go to Image up here at the top, Apply Image. At Source, right here at the top, we're going to select our Starless photo. At Blending, we're going to select Subtract. And leave your offset at about 2. Click OK. Now check that out. We have a stars only picture and a starless picture that we can both edit separately. So let's get on with that, shall we? I'm going to start with our starless photo. I'm going to make a duplicate. Control J. Okay, I might take the Band-Aid tool and go around here and fix any weird little problems that I might not want exaggerated. It's not a ton. You can adjust the brush size with the brackets as usual. I called it the Band-Aid tool. What is it actually called? Spot Healing Brush Tool. Alright. There's not a whole lot I want to take care of, so let's just be done with that. We're going to do our final curve stretch because really after this it just starts getting so muddy I can't deal with it. But can you see the witch head in here? Alright, let's do this. I'm going to hit Control M. Just going to bring that up. Definitely see some nebulosity coming out, some more of the witch head, some more of these dust clouds in here. But also, you can kind of see where it looks like holes where the stars used to be, and that's why I'm not going to stretch this anymore. Might even bring the stretch down a little bit. Okay, just going to click OK. Let's do a levels adjustment. Control L. There's not a whole lot I can do right now. I'm not too worried about clipping because the only thing that's really clipping, I think, over here on the left are probably these super black parts right there. For the most part, I think we're okay. Drag that in just a touch more. That's about all I'm going to do. I'm going to try running a gradient exterminator again and see what that does. I'm going to click my lasso tool, draw a circle around everything, select inverse, filter RC Astro gradient exterminator, click OK. Control D and run one more levels adjustment. There we go. I like that a lot. Right now I'm just going to bring out some color a little bit. I'm going to start with Barnard's loop. So I'm going to go, well, let's create a new stamp layer. Control Alt Shift and E. And now I'm going to go to select color range. Make sure sampled colors is selected. I'm going to take the dropper and just click right in here. Play with my fuzziness. I really mostly just want to get this loop selected, so let's leave it about right there. Okay, I'm going to go to layer, new adjustment layer, and I'm going to pick hue and saturation for this. And the reason I'm picking hue and saturation over vibrance is because with my camera, it picks up the reds, the hydrogen alphas, as more of a purple, and I would like to see it a little more red. It's like a pink purple, and I like seeing like the Horsehead Nebula and Barnard's Loop in red. So we just bring up the saturation a little bit, not too much because it does add noise, and move the hue over till it's a little more red. There we go. That's fine. All right, we're gonna hit Control D to make sure everything's deselected. Control Alt Shift and E for a new stamp layer. And let's bring out the blues a little bit. Select color range, sample the blues over here, bring that up a bit. Alright, got some of these blues selected. Now we're going to go to layer, new adjustment layer, vibrance. Just bring that up a little bit. Okay, Control Alt Shift and E, because now we're going to do some noise reduction that is definitely needed. Somebody's calling me, but it says suspected spam. I get way too many of these. Alright, anyway, noise reduction. Yes. Filter. Camera raw filter. Sometimes I forget what I'm doing. Alright, make sure you got the detail tab opened. I'm going to zoom in by left clicking and dragging left and right. Look at all that. It's just awful looking. So first, color noise reduction, and then noise reduction. And that really smoothed it out a lot. Now, if I were editing something a lot more zoomed in, like the Orion Nebula or Andromeda Galaxy or anything like that, where the deep sky object fills the entire screen, I would not go nearly as aggressive with the noise reduction as I'm going to do on this image today. But because everything is so wide in this photo, I'm going to go a little overboard with it. There's a lot of noise in this photo anyway. Okay, I'm going to click OK. I might try to sharpen maybe the Witch Head Nebula a little bit. So Control-Alt-Shift-E for a new stamp layer. Filter, sharpen. I use Smart Sharpen. Just gonna turn the sliders about like this for me. I don't know. I'm not gonna sharpen the whole image, just a few places. Click OK. Now right now it just sharpened the entire image, and that's not what I want. So I'm going to create a new layer mask right here by clicking this button. Now I'm going to invert that layer mask by hitting Control-I. Now you can no longer see any sharpening. I'm going to make sure that this right here is set to white since I have a black layer mask. Set this to white right here. Turn my brush on, maybe about 50%. Now I'm going to just kind of tap, tap, tap over anything I want sharpened. Horsehead and Flame for sure. Maybe the rosette. I'm leaving the Orion Nebula alone because we're going to fix that later. That's a whole nother step. Okay, that's about all the sharpening I'm going to do. Control-Alt-Shift and E. It's very subtle, you probably don't even notice it. We're getting close to the end of the Starless portion of this edit. I'm going to go to Filter, Camera Raw Filter, and do some overall adjustments. Go to the Basic tab up here, add a little contrast. See what happens when we add whites. Brings out the witch head just a touch. Clarity just a touch, but not much because that definitely adds noise and problems. Dehaze maybe a touch. Vibrance and saturation. There's a lot of orange in here. I wonder if I can get that out in the color mixer. Yeah, there we go. I like that a lot better. It's just that was too much for me. Increase the reds a bit. Now I'm definitely going to do a little more noise reduction. Click the Detail tab, Noise Reduction. See what happens if I add a little more clarity now that I've reduced some noise. Just don't want to go too crazy with all this. Now, if this looks like a hot mess to you right now, don't worry. Once you add the stars back in, it suddenly just pops. All right, I'm gonna click OK. I think that's starting to look awesome. I see a lot of cool detail in there. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna go over to our stars only image, and we're gonna mess with this just a touch. Control J for a duplicate layer if you flattened everything. Now let's see, I'm going to do a little bit of star reduction, but not much, because in this image you can see like it looks like holes where stars used to be, and I want to fill those holes. Let's do Select, Color Range, Highlights. Adjust fuzziness up and range down. Get a lot of stars good and selected in there. Click OK. That looks great. Let's zoom in for a second. Look at something. Now see how like in some of these stars like this, the entire star is not selected? That's why we go to select, modify, expand, and expand it by 2 pixels. There we go, that looks a lot better. Select, modify, feather it by half of that expansion, so half of 2 is 1. There we go. Now I'm going to hide all these marching ants. Control H. And go to Filter, Other, Minimum. I'm just going to do the star reduction at maybe 0.5. Click OK. Yeah, not bad. Okay, let's do Control D to deselect, and filter, camera raw filter. Let's just increase the vibrance and saturation of the stars just a little bit. Bring out some star color. And if there's any noise in there hidden somewhere, let's get rid of it. Some noise reduction. And then click OK. Now we're ready to add our stars back in. So we'll hit Control A, Command A on a Mac, and Control C to copy. Go back over here. We're going to paste our stars on top. Control V. There, it's done. What do you think? No, I'm kidding. Go to blend mode right here where it says normal, and we're going to change it to screen. Boom. I love it. That looks so cool to me. I mean, it's not quite done yet, but the difference is huge. Look at that. Wow. Okay, so let's do a new stamp layer. Control Alt Shift and E, and we're gonna do one more final camera raw filter adjustment. Basic tab, maybe a little contrast, touch of clarity. I think the colors are popping enough. I probably don't need to add any more vibrance or saturation. Detail, touch more noise reduction. Trying not to go too crazy with this. It looks okay to me. Yeah, bringing it way up is not getting rid of any problems I'm seeing, so we're just going to bring it back down. Alright, hit OK. Now one thing I'd like to do is fix the Orion Nebula, because that looks like crap, and then the star Rigel doesn't look that great either. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go over here to this stars only layer, and I'm going to close that out. Now let's find the folder where we saved our stacked image from earlier. Our stacked but unprocessed image. Let's go ahead and find that. Here it is. Now let's open that back up in Photoshop again. So this is fresh out of Sequator. Also, it's just kind of amazing to look at before and after. Like, wow. Anyway. Let's do a little levels adjustments on this. Control L, pull that in a little bit. Looks good to me. And a little bit of star reduction, the same amount we did on the other photo. So we're going to go to Select, Color Range, Highlights, and adjust it to where we see a lot of stars. There we go. Looks good to me. And once again, we're going to go to Select, Modify, Expand by 2 pixels, and select, modify, feather by 1 pixel, and Control H to hide the marching ants. Filter, Other, Minimum. And earlier I might not have said this, but make sure Preserve is set to roundness. You want your stars to be round, of course. 0.5 pixels, click OK. Alright, great. Now what we're going to do is copy this by hitting Control A for select all and Control C for copy. Go back over to our it's called Starless layer, but it's, it's our process image, and we're going to paste it in here. Control V. Alright, now let's move our process image back on top. So we want the processed image on top and the original image right underneath, just like this. Okay? And we're going to create a layer mask on our processed image. Make sure it's white. I mean, it's going to be white by default, so make sure this is set to black. Get a brush going on right here. And our opacity, I'm going to bring that down to like 25%. And let's go ahead and zoom in. Select my brush again. Okay. Try to paint the details back in. There we go. I think the star Rigel needs it a little bit too. Yeah. Maybe Beetlejuice up here. Hey. Yeah. Yeah, that looks a lot better. Okay. Zoom back out. Yeah, I'm quite happy with that now. If you still see some edges around here where it kind of looks like your edit is fake, one thing you can do is go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur. Just kind of make sure your selection is what you painted it on that mask is blurred a little bit. That might be too much. Yeah, some good blurred edges there. Alright, and we're pretty much done at this point. Let's just do some cropping. New stamp layer, Control, Alt, Shift, and E. That should be good about right there. Alright everybody, there you have it. That is my Orion Constellation processing technique. I hope you learned something. Please leave me some comments and let's talk about processing techniques. And if you like this, give me a like and a subscribe. And thanks so much for watching. As always, stay spacey, everybody, and clear skies. Bye-bye.